7 days after making his debut for Argentina, Franco Mastantuono left River Plate and signed for Real Madrid for €63 million. It was supposed to be the beginning of everything. Instead, it might have cost him the World Cup. Because while Argentina are in the United States right now defending their world title, Mastantuono is watching from home. The player Scaloni trusted enough to wear Lionel Messi's number 10 shirt is not in the squad. The player Real Madrid paid €63 million for is not at the tournament. And the question nobody is answering directly is this: did Mastantuono make the biggest mistake of his career by moving to Real Madrid at 18 years old? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what went wrong, and why the answer to that question matters far beyond one teenager who missed one tournament. To understand what happened, you need to understand what Mastantuono was before he left Argentina. Not the statistics, the player. At River Plate, he was untouchable, the youngest goal scorer in the club's history, a player who wore the number 10 in the most pressure-filled stadium in South America and looked like he had been doing it for a decade. But the moment that tells you everything about who this player is happened in the Super Clasico, the most intense derby in world football. River Plate against Boca Juniors, 80,000 people, the weight of an entire city on every touch. Mastantuono was 16 years old. He received the ball inside the box, turned away from his marker in a single movement, and finished with the composure of someone who had been in that situation 100 times before. He had never been in that situation before. It did not matter. That is who Mastantuono was at River Plate. A teenager who performed better when the pressure was higher, not despite the moment, but because of it. Scaloni called him up for 3 consecutive World Cup qualifying windows. Against Chile, Venezuela, and Ecuador, the hardest games in CONMEBOL qualification. And when Messi was injured and Argentina needed someone to wear the captain's shirt, Scaloni gave the number 10 to an 18-year-old who had just started his international career. In Argentina, the number 10 is not just a shirt, it is a statement about who you are and who you are going to become. 7 days after that friendly against Zambia, Mastantuono was on a plane to Madrid. He left River Plate as the most exciting teenager in South American football. He arrived at Real Madrid and became invisible. Real Madrid paid €63 million for a teenager who had never played a minute of European football. The expectations were enormous, not just from the media, but from inside the club. He was supposed to be the next generational superstar. The player who would replace Modric and eventually step into the space left by the greatest players in the club's history. That is not a normal situation for an 18-year-old in his first weeks at a new club in a new country with a new language. Under Xabi Alonso, his momentum slowed. Tensions were reported inside the dressing room. His first Clasico came and went, and Mastantuono was not even selected for the squad. Think about that. The player Argentina trusted with Messi's number 10 was not selected for a Real Madrid squad to play in a Clasico. The Spanish press said it clearly. He had not played much, and he had looked short on confidence. The lack of continuity ended up seriously damaging his chances. And then came pubalgia, a groin injury that is almost impossible to play through, which sidelined him at the most critical stretch of the season. By the time Scaloni was finalizing his World Cup squad, Mastantuono had not established himself at Real Madrid. And in Argentina, where the competition for midfield places is among the most intense in world football, not establishing yourself at club level means not going to the tournament. The reasons were purely footballing, no controversy, no personal conflict with Scaloni. Just a teenager who moved too fast, arrived at too big a club, and needed more time than the World Cup calendar was willing to give him. But here is where this story becomes something more than just a cautionary tale. And this is the part that most people are missing, because the same question that follows Mastantuono follows every teenager who makes that jump. Pedri at Barcelona developed gradually, 2 years building into the system, protected, managed, given time. Gavi the same. Yamal the same. Barcelona built a structure around developing young players at the pace they needed. Real Madrid paid 63 million euros and put Mastantuono in a dressing room with Mbappe, Vinicius, and Bellingham and expected him to compete from day one. That is not a failure of talent, that is a failure of environment. He wore Messi's number 10 at 18 years old. He scored in a Super Clasico at 16. None of that changed because he had a difficult first season in Madrid. The talent is exactly where it was. The confidence is not, and confidence, unlike talent, can be rebuilt. Real Madrid have not given up on him. Xabi Alonso has not given up on him. And Scaloni, the man who gave him Messi's shirt, has not forgotten who this player is. The question is whether Mastantuono himself still knows. Now I want to be honest about the other side of this argument. Scaloni made the right decision, and it is important to say that clearly. Argentina have Messi, Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez, De Paul, a squad full of players who know exactly what it takes to win a World Cup because they did it 3 years ago. Adding an 18-year-old who has spent a year losing confidence at Real Madrid into that environment is a risk, and it does not make the team better right now. The omission of Mastantuono means Argentina did not call up one of their most dynamic young forwards. That could cost them if energy and directness are needed in the later rounds. That is a real risk. But it is a smaller risk than bringing a player whose confidence is fragile into the most pressurized tournament in the world. Scaloni chose the right squad for right now. Mastantuono will have other World Cups. The question is whether those World Cups arrive with the same level of expectation, or whether this moment, watching from home at 18 while his country defends the world title, becomes the wound that either breaks him or makes him. Here is where I land. Moving to Real Madrid at 18 was not a mistake. It was the right move at the wrong time. A year earlier, when his confidence was at its highest, when his form at River Plate was untouchable, when the number 10 felt like it belonged to him, that would have been the moment to make the jump. Instead, he moved 7 days after his international debut, before he had established anything at senior level, before the world had seen enough of him to separate the expectation from the reality. Real Madrid will not give up on him. 63 million euros does not get written off after one difficult season. And Scaloni has not forgotten who this player is. But right now, while Argentina play for back-to-back World Cups in the United States, Mastantuono has a different kind of game to play. The most important game of his career. Not on a pitch in Kansas City or New York. Inside his own head. The teenager who turned away from his marker in a Super Clasico at 16 and finished without blinking. That player is still in there. The question is whether he can find him again before the next World Cup arrives. Whether he wins that game will determine everything that comes next. Do you think Mastantuono made a mistake moving to Real Madrid at 18, or is this just a temporary setback for someone who will eventually be one of the best players in the world? Tell me in the comments, because this conversation is going to run for the next 10 years.